So the comic book store at which I work is right next to a barber shop, and you can tell how much they charge by how long I live. Arrogant, nice guys, but I'm not paying $80. I'm not paying more than I don't even like paying $20. The hair is long. I want it to be short. That's not going to be more than fucking 2, 3, 4. Beep beep bop 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 bop. Right up beep bop beep beep doo. Beep beep boop bop boop bop bop. Hey there, everybody. Happy Tet upcoming. Beep, beep, boop, a doo. Ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. Whatever the fucking thing is. That's two F words. Sorry. I know how I got so cursy. Just sitting on here. All right. Well, that's a big stack of Comic Street. I got all the month of December out of my, like, over last week. You know, over the last 2 weeks, I think. Buy a few books every day to try to get my backlog taken care of. Got it all done on Saturday. But then, of course, today was a much bigger week than usual. I did get some reading in this week, happily. And I even, like, I'm going to pick away at it usually in the morning when I should be writing. but in the meanwhile, I've only been trying to pick books that aren't, that are number one or that aren't going to, like, so I'm probably not going to be talking about much Marvel stuff because I consider the Marvel Universe to be one thing. So I have to read all the books in the order they come out, or it's the whole thing goes kerflooey. All right, this won't take too terribly long. This one is pretty obvious. Barbaric, Hell to Pay, number one. I've talked about Barbaric at least twice or three times now. So there's not much more I can say about it that I haven't said already. But I wanted to put it at the top of my to read stack. And I can't just do that. I have to have some sort of stupid rationale for it. As in, I featured it on my television show that I watch. I also got this. I don't know if I'll get a chance to read this whole thing, but it's not too thick. This is Friday. This is book two, colon, on a cold winter's night. This is Ed Brubaker and Marcos Martin's reinterpretation of the Encyclopedia Brown stories, which I have not read since I was knee high to a grasshopper. But I read the first volume last year. But yeah, it was right around this time last year. I believe this is a online series. Could that sound any old? I believe this is one of the internet comics. Although I couldn't swear to it. And I don't really like. I used to be vociferously anti-internet, just anti-computer in general. And over the years, that changed, and now I'm kind of going back in the other direction. But when it comes to comics, I never really particularly enjoyed reading them on the computer. I'll read the Marvel Unlimited app because that's set up to read, and honestly, even that is kind of less than satisfying in a lot of ways. I don't have Comixology, nor do I have any interest in. I don't need yet another venue in which to read comics. But I was thinking about it because I ran across some of these, but there was a book by Warren Ellis called Freak Angels that was online, and this was like in the late aughts when it was still kind of new. And he made a really big deal because that guy was all about. He was the internet Jesus back then, so he was all about being very online before that was even really a thing. Now he's been canceled, and that's it's too bad. But also, he hadn't written a good comic in a while, so or even any comics in a while. Um, that's really not the point. So they would put, like, it was, I believe Avatar put out the trade collections of Freak Angels, and I seem to recall in every one of those Warren Ellis being like, "Why are you paying money for this? It's free on the internet." And my answer was, "You just answered your own question." I mean, the internet is free in a lot of ways. That doesn't mean I want it in my life any more than it already is. So I'll take the nice little digest size books instead. Now, these two I don't know much about going in, but look really pretty good. First up is Immortal Sergeant by Joe Kelly and Ken Niimura, I believe is how you say his name. And I don't know much about this. Joe Kelly was the first writer of Deadpool to actually give Deadpool any kind of depth. And I read his entire run a few years ago, and it was better than I expected, which I know is not exactly high praise. um, but I enjoy his work. These two also did a book called I Kill Giants, which I haven't read, but apparently is all the rage. So yeah, we'll find out together. Well, not at the same time, obviously. Together. I mean, unless you want to come over and read over my shoulder, which actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, I would not like that at all. This is another book. This is called White Savior, #1, from the good people at Dark Horse Comics. It's written and drawn by Eric Nguyen, and I will admit, when I saw it there, I thought it was Dustin Nguyen. It was going to be. I also apologize for my terrible. Happy Tet, everybody. But if I remember from the solicit, the uh, the premise is it very much in the vein of Tom Cruise, The Last Samurai. Um, it's a Japanese story about a big dumb white guy who comes in to try to save the day, and things don't exactly go to plan. That sounded interesting. There's been a lot more of that sort of thing in comics. It feels like over these last few years. Like I would say more than any other like pop culture art outlet or venue. Comics have done more and sooner to be more diverse and truly actually diverse, not just. I mean, Marvel and DC will do things like, oh, we'll make this character gay, or we'll make these characters Asian, or something like that. And but comics in general, I feel, you know, like the Good Asian from Image Comics and stuff like that. Like that book, and I have no reason to not expect it from this book. The Good Asian was a comic that did a lot in the way of Asian representation in comics. It had a lot to say about race relations, especially as per Asians in America, and it was also a really good noir detective story. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm often befuddled by people who are like, keep your politics out of my comic books. And I, okay, well, first of all, Superman was created to punch Nazis. So if you're looking for apoliticalness in comic books, you're going to have to go back to before 1938. And I mean, that's the difference. Is like if it's so obvious. Marvel did a book a couple years ago called Atlantis Attacks, which was a callback to an event from the late '80s, and then this new Atlantis Attacks had nothing to do with that, but that was the name recognition to get dorks to buy it. I still enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, but it was, instead of calling it Atlantis Attacks, they really should have called it. Let's see how many Asian characters we can throw against the wall and make stick. And the answer is few. I bought a bunch of, like, because then they gave all like Swordmaster and White Fox all got spin-offs and stuff like that, and they just weren't that good. Swordmaster is now Iron Fist, and I'm actually enjoying how that's going. I like the Swordmaster was the only one of those books that I bought for any extended period of time, and that was largely because Shang Chi was in it. Oddly enough, the Asian character to sort of last is the one who's been around since the '70s, and who was really a very hollow Bruce Lee knockoff. But some of the best comics, which they all took off. I don't know if I mentioned this. They took the entire run of Doug Monk and Paul Gulacy's Master of Kung Fu off the Marvel Unlimited app. So this is not very unlimited to me. I I mean, it's not impossible that it's because it's not exactly I wouldn't go so far as to call that book racist, but there's definitely some things in there that you're like, ew, it's a little, especially because it's just all done by white guys. But it's so good. It's Paul Gulacy's best work, and that's a tall order. The guy's a brilliant artist. But so anyway, I'm down for something like this, especially. It's like an adventure book. It's also tongue in cheek. So yeah, let's check it out. I mean, I feel like since 2020, there were a lot more black oriented, but there already were a pretty good number to me. I mean, what do I know? But now there's more Asian books coming out, Asian American stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'm frankly, I was thinking about this morning too. How like the last Black Panther movie had barely any white people in it. It had two white people in it, and grant you, they were two of the more famous people in the movie. Nope had very few white characters in it. Certainly no main characters. And the more I see movies and TV like that, the more I'm like, yeah, I am so sick of white people. And that's not just white liberal guilt. That is pure just fact. I mean, every story has been, you know, about white people for the most part in this country. And I'm not saying they should stop making stories about white people, but how about some more stories without white people? It's kind of like a Bechdel thing. You know what I mean? Like they can do a movie without white people, and nobody in the movie is like, "Where are the white people?" Anyway, I'll say this one last thing, and no, I'm not going to say it. I'm already tired of myself, and I got a steak to broil. So going vampire hunting later. Ooh, what a clever play on words. Okay, I did not open these. I did not flip back through these. I just read these Sunday though, so I should know. Now, the first up is Joe Fixit #1, and I think I was on the fence as to whether or not this took place in the late '80s, and it absolutely does. What I also didn't realize is that you can't really see it too well, but this is the first appearance of Joe Fixit. This was also the first issue of the Incredible Hulk that I ever bought, and I remember it now, like reading it, being like, "Oh, this is I don't know what," but it was like they change, the typical premise of the Hulk is Bruce Banner gets angry, turns into the Hulk. The Joe Fixit thing, it was completely different, and I was grateful. I didn't realize at the time, but I'm grateful now that I jumped in on the ground floor. This was incredible. This was super good. Exactly what I wanted. The Hulk being a fucking badass gangster type. He also beats the hell out of the Kingpin Wilson Fisk, and it's really good. It's exactly what I wanted. Joe Fixit stuff, and it's we were talking today actually about me and my boss were talking about how Immortal Hulk was so hot, and now like nobody really cares about it. But it did seem to kind of bump Joe Fixit back because Joe Fixit had not been around. He was in the new Fantastic Four, so whenever they called back to that, they would bring him back. But he hadn't he hadn't really appeared in anything for a very long time. And when he showed up in the Immortal Hulk, he was in like kind of human form. He wasn't big and gray. But I think like bringing that character back, and also been doing the new Fantastic Four stuff again too. They're like, why don't we just do a whole series, especially with Peter David? Peter David apparently has no end of like Hulk ideas. Like he did the Maestro, like the Days of Future Present. What is it? Future Imperfect. And now he's doing the Joe Fixit book. I don't know what offshoot Hulk book he'll do next, but I'm looking forward to it. Also, was Spy Superb #1, and this was worth $8, I would say. I hope they're not all going to be $8, but yeah, this is great. This is very Matt Kent. So the whole premise is that the best spy is the one who does not realize he's a spy. It's very Man Who Knew Too Little, but a little less silly. But yeah, basically the CIA has enacted this program that will, due to extreme, like sometimes it's like, wouldn't it just be easier just to shoot the Russians or something? I don't know. But yeah, basically our main hero is a hilariously terrible guy, and he's like a klutz and just kind of a bad dude. Like not a bad guy, but a guy you're like, I don't want to hang out with that guy. And so he's unaware that he's being used by the CIA in this way until he gets almost killed, and then it's like, well, now I don't know what to do. So yeah, it's good stuff, and it's not dissimilar to mind management, which that comes up a lot in Matt Kint's work, especially in the spy stuff. Is what how much of what like there's so many layers upon in the spy game. There's so many lies and so much fiction and cover and all this sort of thing. Triple agents and quadruple agents and stuff that you begin to question your own perceptions of things. What am I actually perceiving and what is being, shot into my brain with a syringe by a CIA agent. And I think that's the thing that's one of the things anyway that Matt Kint's spy fiction has that I find lacking in others. Most spy fiction, and I've said this before, is for boring dads. And yes, that would include me, but I'm not. It's not into Clancy. I'm not into any of that stuff. This stuff where it's more about the people and less about the gosh wow of it, the whiz bang of the technology, etc. And I am boring myself. Well, it only took a couple of years. What am I kidding? I've been bored myself for years. Okay.